Today, we take a peek at one of Stampin' Up's coolest tools, the Stamparatus, on this episode of Designing with Elaine. Welcome everyone. Today we're going to take a look at Stampin' Up's Stamparatus. What is a Stamparatus? Well, you've likely seen something similar before at a craft store. So the Stamparatus is simply a device that comes with two removable plates. Sometimes they only come with one, but this one has two removable plates with grids. We get two magnets. I added some of my Stampin' Up graph paper below, but when it comes, it looks like this. It's got a little foam pad so that you can use your photopolymer stamps. It gives it a little more cushion to get it all nice and neat and every little piece inked well. And it comes with this graph down below. So what you use the Stamparatus for mostly is, well, it has multiple uses. One use is if you're making a large number of cards, let's say Christmas cards for the upcoming holiday, and you want to do the same design on every single card and you want it done in the same way. Well, by attaching a stamp to your plate, putting your piece of paper down, stamping and pressing, you can ensure, usually you mark where you want your card to go, and you can ensure that it's in the same spot every single time, which is pretty darn cool. So normally you would mark the area where you want your card to be, and you could mark it on the graph paper. You're going to use the magnets to hold them down. Now, a special note about the magnets: you do not want them to come into contact with each other because they smash together and they can actually crack and break. So you don't want that. But you do need the magnets to hold your paper down. When you stamp and lift, it's going to lift up on the paper a little bit, and you don't want that. In addition to stamping in the same place and ensuring you're making cards that look very similar over a multiple card set, Stampin' Up also has some cool sets that are doubles. You can do the inside of a creature and you can do its outside fur, for example, with the set Special Someone. With the set Mountain Air, they're reversible stamps. So you can do the mountains, you could do a bunch of the shadow mountains, and then these, you can do these mountains right over these. They match because they're the front and back of the same stamp. But if you're doing something like this and you want the design to line up and match perfectly, you're going to want to use a tool like the Stamparatus. They also have a bunch of flowers where you'll have an inside color that you can put, or a splash of something you can put under the flower. And it's easier to make sure you're hitting the right marks when you use something like the Stamparatus, especially if you're using the rubber stamps, what we call the cling set, because they're not see-through like the photopolymer. So it's a little harder to line up sometimes. The Stamparatus is also really good for sets where there's a big stamp and there's a lot of intricate detail. Sometimes if you're trying to ink up this guy, stamp him down, a lot of times you'll find that you've missed a spot right in the middle. It didn't get ink on the paper, and it's very, very hard to reline it up. But if you use the Stamparatus, you can just re-ink it, stamp it again, and make sure that that spot gets hit. So it has a variety of uses. Today I thought we'd use the Special Someone and take a look at our little creatures and see how we can line them up. So these are photopolymer. So they are our clear plastic stamps. And I'm going to shift this down so you can see me put the stamp on. A lot of times what you can do is line it up on your paper as well. So we'll take our inside and we'll put him stamp side down. Let's put him up here. So you can line him right up on the paper the way you want it to be. And then you can just fold your plate down, give it a little press, and it'll stick to it. Now you see how the stamp is sticking to the paper. We want to make sure that when we stamp it down, we're getting a good image. So we want to make sure that our paper is held down a little bit better than it was. Alrighty, so now we have our stamp. We can ink it, and I have found that with this set, the interior color needs to be lighter than the exterior color. So you can just take your stamp pad, flip it open, and just make sure you get good color. Now you'll notice that I have some color on the plate itself. That's not going to make a difference because the plate isn't actually touching the paper. The stamp is thick enough that none of this is going to get on our paper here. So then we fold it down, give it a good press, lift it up, and we have our image. And if we're not happy, we can just re-ink and redo it. Now, without moving our paper, we are going to ink up the exterior stamp for this. Now, you can either, I would suggest cleaning, especially the photopolymer stamps, you need to clean them close to when you stamp because they can get stained. The stain isn't going to get on anything else, but you can just give it a quick clean because you don't want to stain it any more than you have to. But we can also use the other plate. The cool thing with the other plate is to make stamping a breeze. If you're a demonstrator and you're holding a class, you have one on one plate already set to go, one on the other plate already set to go. So if I had the exterior one on this side, then you can just boom, boom, and you're done. So in fact, let's do that. So I'm going to line him up where I want him on my image here. That looks pretty good. We'll fold this plate down, pick him up, and we are going to use the darker color on the exterior. If you use the dark on the inner stamp, then you're not going to see the details of the outer stamp. Make sure that's all inked up and good. And then we just fold him over. Give him a good press. And voila, a really cool raccoon, thanks to the Stamparatus. So you can see with class, with the two plates, if you were holding a class or you were doing a card, multiples of the same card, you don't want to be peeling off the stamp in between each one, which is why it's great that this has the two plates, because you can just stamp one, stamp the next, wipe them off. If you're using the same colors, you don't even really have to wipe them off. Just re-ink, put your new paper down, re-ink, and go. So the Stamparatus is pretty sweet, and it can be found in the annual catalog on page 164. I'll have details in the link below as well. And they do sell replacement magnets, replacement foam mats, a deluxe foam mat as well. So they've got some cool add-ons that you can get that will really help you get great results, essentially. Yes, it will help you get really great results. Also, you might have seen, I apologize for its ugly look. This is the Stampin' Chamois that Stampin' Up! Sells. Now, when you get it, it is this color, purple. I have used mine a lot. These corners look a little shrunk because they are actually harder. They're drying out. You do want to try and keep it moist. I keep mine just in a Ziploc bag for now, but the cases that Stampin' Up! Sells, the extra stamp cases, I've heard that people use those as well to store it, and that works really well. In addition, I just haven't gotten to that point yet. But you can use the Stampin' Chamois. You get it moist and you just use that to clean off your stamps. That's usually what I use if I am, stamping in an odd spot. If I'm stamping by myself, if I'm holding a class or something, I will use the Stampin' Mist. We'll get into that in another show, but that is another tool that's very helpful if you have people over, multiple hands. They can just spray and clean on an as needed basis instead of using the chamois. The chamois is very nice for solo crafting, I guess is what you could call it. That, in a nutshell, is the Stamparatus. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.